Hello everyone, my name is Francis. We're over here at the club today joining you with a bottle of one of my all-time favorite champagnes. We're unfortunately unable to do the live Zoom call this week due to the board of directors meeting, but we still wanted to reach out to everyone and share some content. So without further ado, this is Ruinart champagne, Blanc de Blancs, which literally translates to white from whites. This is 100% Chardonnay, and it does come from Champagne in France, so it is a true champagne. Typically, there's 3 different grapes used with champagne production: Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and then Pinot Meunier as well. This one is, as I had mentioned, 100% Chardonnay. So this is also a brut champagne, which directly translates to dry. There are varying levels of sugar inside or what could be inside a bottle of champagne. I think most of us are familiar with the brut, which is what this style is, but there's also sec and demi-sec and a couple different classifications depending on the sweetness level that you would prefer to enjoy. What I like about brut champagne, and I think what most people identify with, is it literally goes with anything. So we could pair oysters, which is a classic presentation with champagne, but we could also do chicken, beef, desserts like chocolate or creme brulee, spicy food, barbecue. Literally anything goes with champagne. So I know that most of us are used to drinking champagne in a celebration or anniversaries, weddings, things like that, when in fact champagne can be enjoyed pretty much daily. So, well, without further ado, we'll go over the opening process. Now, as we all know, champagne has a lot of carbonation inside the bottle. That's due to the secondary fermentation process that champagne goes through. So basically, there's a lot of carbon dioxide in this bottle ready to escape. So when you're opening champagne, just be very, very careful to always have your thumb on the top of the bottle once you're ready to open that. So the first step is going to be, if you don't have a wine opener like this, most bottles will come with a little tab here that you can kind of pull on. I guess I'm kind of old school. I just like to cut it with the knife here. All right. Once that is done, I can put the wine key away. We won't need that again. So once we've safely removed the foil, we're going to place our thumb on top of this. This is called the mousselette. It's basically a cage. There's a little turn key here. And funny little known fact about these, it takes 6 turns, no matter what bottle of champagne it is, whatever the make or model, so to speak. It's always 6 turns for the mousselette. So we'll test that theory. That's 3, 4, 5, and 6. There we go. So once you have the mousselette unloosened like so, there's a couple different ways you can do this. The way that I prefer, again, always keeping something, whether it's your thumb or hand, on top of that, because once you get this cork up to a certain point, it's going to want to jump out of the bottle, literally. I like to turn the base of the bottle like so. So normally if we're doing service, we always want to keep the label facing the person who ordered the bottle. Just give it a few little turns, keeping enough pressure where it doesn't pop out, but you just want to hear a little kiss like that. So if you've done it correctly, you won't have champagne spilling all over your hands, which I've done many times. And then what we do is, if we're doing proper champagne service, we take the cork out of the mousselette and present that to the person who ordered the wine. So onto glassware, and I hope everyone can see all 3 of these clearly. This is your traditional champagne flute. Then I have our traditional Burgundy glass, which is typically used for Chardonnay or Pinot Noir. This is, again, Chardonnay. And then this is a Cab Merlot glass, traditional Cab Merlot glass. I think there's a movement of sorts nowadays where people are moving away from champagne flutes. These are great for weddings and things like that. I think if you're enjoying a bottle of champagne with friends at home, any glass can be used. The hard part with these functionally is trying to buff them and clean them from the inside because they're so shallow and skinny. So I personally prefer the Burgundy glass, but the Cab Merlot glass works equally as well. So they say that in any glass of champagne, you can have up to a million bubbles in one single glass. So pretty impressive stuff. This particular bottle, the reason I hold it kind of near and dear to my heart is because It has an excellent price point. We're selling it on our menu for just under $60 a bottle, which is an absolute steal. To me, this bottle of champagne drinks closer to $125 to $150 bottle at retail. And again, when you consider their rich history and just the quality of the wine inside the bottle, I think it's kind of hard to argue that, for me, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, there's not a better bottle of champagne out there. So, with this particular champagne, it is it's a cuvee, so it's non-vintage. They actually blend different vintages into this particular bottle. With it being Chardonnay, you should get quite a bit of green apple in the nose, which I got immediately as soon as we opened this bottle. A little bit of honey, very light use of oak here. Just clean, crisp, very clean. That's the biggest word I can use to describe this particular wine. I think certain champagnes have more of a, for lack of a better way to describe it, a lot of yeast. You smell it, you can taste it. I feel like the style in which Ruinart produces it, it's not as forward there. Very, very clean and crisp as far as the wine's concerned. That's just, again, fantastic. I think for the price we're selling it, there's just no way you can get a better quality wine. And thank you all for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the club again very soon. Cheers. One more thing about the bottle here. So obviously we talked a little bit about the pressure that's inside here with the carbon dioxide. It took the French years to figure out how to bottle champagne. Champagne's actually back from, let's just say, the 1500s for argument's sake there. So it was not, in fact, Dom Perignon who came up with champagne. He did refine many of the techniques, however, that are used to make champagne. There's about 40 different techniques in the traditional champagne method. The bottles themselves, they had to figure out how to hold the contents without the bottles actually exploding. So this is why you start to see shapes like this for champagne bottles with the big punts on the bottom. The punts, the bottom here of the bottle. This was actually designed so it didn't scratch the wooden tables back in the day, but that's a whole other story. So once they figured out how to make bottles that would hold the pressure of the contents of the inside of the bottle, the cork was the next thing, and that's where the mousselet came from. So, pretty cool backstory on the history of champagne. Ruinart is actually Dom Ruinart, who was the monk at the monastery there, and they took his name back in the 1700s when they came up with this particular champagne house. But obviously the monasteries played a huge part in the history of champagne and what we've all come to know and enjoy today with champagne. So it's always nice to kind of know the history of what's in your glass. So.